department.
Now at 5, authorities filed charges in a Pittsburgh murder case.
Lawmakers are pressing forward on a bill to get more baby formula to low-income families. I'm Skyler Henry at the White House with the latest as the FDA works to reopen a key shuttered plant partly responsible for the nationwide shortage.
And how to find the right mental health therapist.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Prosecutors filed charges following Saturday night's fatal shooting in Pittsburgh. This is KOIM News at 5. Newly released court documents indicate the suspect fired shots at 3 addresses, all on the 100 block of West 23rd Street in Pittsburgh. When officers arrived, they found 2 women suffering from gunshots. 40-year-old Stephanie Short of Pittsburgh died at the scene. 46-year-old Velma Kuby was in stable condition with a gunshot wound. Now 39-year-old James Hamilton of Pittsburgh is charged with first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder, among other crimes. You can read a lot more details about this case on our website. That's KOIMnewsnow.com. Joplin's Metro Emergency Transport System, METS, held an open house today for National EMS Week, celebrating their 40 years of service in the area. State Representatives Bob Bromley and Lane Roberts and State Senator Bill White presented resolutions. They were joined by some original members of the first EMS team at METS.
The recognition of the job that they do is not always there. So as far as for me, I think just being able to honor and show the appreciation to the men and women that are doing this today, it's harder now than it's ever been.
Tonight at 6, we're going to hear from one of the original members from 40 years ago. Some students in Carthage, Missouri walked out of class today in support of abortion rights. The walkout is in response to a leaked draft opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court suggesting the landmark abortion rights case, Roe v. Wade, might be overturned, as well as a trigger law in Missouri that would ban abortion if the ruling is overturned. We're going to hear from a student tonight at 6. We're also going to have the results of a poll showing how Missourians feel about the abortion issue. Nick Kelly joins us now with a first look at the weather.
And it's nice that we're keeping quiet to start this evening, Al Dow, after we had that parade of thunderstorms, even a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings, or at least one, during the overnight hours. But we're looking okay right now from 7th and Range Line. Nothing on the radar right now. But I want to keep an eye on areas along and south of US 60. That's where we could see a few isolated storms pop up during the late evening hours. I think a short window between 7 o'clock and about 11 o'clock tonight. But if we broaden the view out a little more, we're focused on this developing cluster of storms out in southeastern Colorado. That's going to be the next complex of storms that wants to make a run toward us as we go into late tonight. Kind of like a repeat of last night in a few number of ways. But most of us are warm and dry right now in the mid-80s. We'll watch for a few isolated storms this evening, but we'll fall through the 80s, 70s, down to the mid-60s for tonight, Dow. We'll see if we can get rid of these rain chances anytime soon. Here in a bit.
See you then. The nationwide baby formula shortage has led to at least 2 children needing to be hospitalized. Skyler Henry is at the White House with those details, as well as what lawmakers are doing to help the most vulnerable Americans get the formula their children need.
2 children in Memphis went to the hospital after their parents couldn't find the special formula they need as a result of intestinal issues.
We're supporting with IV fluids and with IV nutrition, which is not ideal.
The FDA reached an agreement with Abbott, which makes the specific formula, to reopen its plant. But it could take 2 months for supplies to hit store shelves. In the meantime, House lawmakers are prepared to vote on a bill that would make it easier for low-income families to get baby formula.
WIC recipients utilize formula at a rate double most other people in this country. About 50% of our babies rely on the WIC program for milk.
The legislation would authorize the USDA to waive rules so that WIC recipients could swap one brand of formula for another, and they would be exempt from the maximum monthly allowances currently in place.
We're giving them the flexibility, and we want to make that permanent, that they can purchase what is available, safe and available.
Lawmakers are also launching an investigation into how the FDA has handled the oversight responsibilities, especially over the Abbott plant at the center of the formula crisis.
The chips should fall where they may. People have to be accountable, whether it is at FDA or whether it is at Abbott.
The Abbott plant in Sturgis, Michigan was shuttered in February due to bacterial contamination.
Recalls happen, but this company has lied, it's cut corners, it's falsified records to cover up misdoings at the sake of infant health.
Republicans are also criticizing the Biden administration response, saying it should have acted quicker to get more formula on store shelves. Skyler Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Dr. Robert Califf, the head of the FDA, is scheduled to testify on Capitol Hill tomorrow. The Better Business Bureau is warning parents to be cautious about where they're buying baby formula. The Bureau has provided some tips for safe online shopping. Checking out the website where you are purchasing is a big one. You can search the website's name and type scam after it. This could locate some complaints about the site. Looking at bad reviews could also help identify scams. We're going to hear from a BBB spokesperson tonight at 10. Writings from the suspected Buffalo, New York supermarket shooter appear to show details of a plot that was in the works for months. Investigators are now combing through hundreds of pages of writings the 18-year-old suspect allegedly kept online. Investigators are looking into other potential targets the suspect might have considered, including unspecified elementary schools, other grocery stores in predominantly black communities in Buffalo, and Hasidic Jewish communities in New Jersey. At least 10 people were killed in the attack that has sparked outrage all across our country. Former Minneapolis police officer Thomas Lane today pled guilty to a state charge of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter in the killing of George Floyd. As part of a plea deal, the charge of aiding and abetting second-degree unintentional murder will be dropped. The state is recommending a sentence of 3 years for Lane and has agreed to allow him to serve the time in a federal prison. Coming up next, reaching out for help.
There's a huge demand for mental health treatment, but finding a counselor or therapist can be a challenge. I'm Danya Backus with how to find the help you need.
And later, the newest side crash test for some popular SUVs.
Let's go to Branson.
Topping today's Health Watch, it's a thumbs up from the FDA on a COVID booster shot for kids 5 to 11 years old. The FDA gave Pfizer emergency use authorization for its booster for kids in that age group. Pfizer says a third dose raised Omicron-fighting antibodies by 36 times for those kids. The matter now goes to the CDC, which meets tomorrow. The Food and Drug Administration has rejected a generic antidepressant as a COVID-19 treatment. FDA officials said they did not find enough evidence to show the drug fluvoxamine would help prevent hospitalizations or severe disease. Mental health treatment is in huge demand in recent years, especially for conditions such as anxiety and depression. Finding a therapist or a counselor can be a process. Danya Backus has more on how to start your search and what to look for in a doctor.
Reem Abukadr says she started seeing a counselor several years ago because she was struggling with depression and the symptoms were interfering with her life.
It's helped me a lot because as I've gone through different counselors, I've sort of, I would say, graduated to techniques that apply more to my life.
But finding a counselor can be challenging and overwhelming. Dr. Rachel Jacoby with Palo Alto University says a first step is to check online directories like Psychology Today, ShrinkSpace, and the National Board of Certified Counselors.
You could also contact your insurance company and see who's paneled with them, and that would help with payment options and payment accessibility.
Patients should also understand the difference between therapy providers, such as a licensed clinical social worker, licensed professional counselor, doctor of psychology, and others.
And there are psychiatrists who prescribe medications and then also may offer more interpersonal sessions as well.
And if you don't find the right fit in a counselor, keep looking. Once you start counseling, Dr. Jacoby says set clear goals. For example, if you're dealing with anxiety.
Your counselor will be able to help you identify goals within navigating your anxiety. And then not only that, they will be able to support you along the way as you work to reach your goal.
Now I'm more trying to focus on enhanced self-regulation techniques that take into account the nervous system and just mindfulness. That's helping me now because I think it's a life skill.
Reem is now pursuing a doctorate in health education, focusing on mental health so she can help others. Danya Backus, CBS News, Los Angeles.
It's important to ask about the cost of care before starting the treatment. Some health insurances will cover a portion of the cost, but they're going to ask if your insurance will cover the provider that you pick. Pollution led to 9 million deaths in 2019. That's according to a new report published in The Lancet. That's equivalent to 1 in 6 deaths worldwide. Air pollution was the most significant concern, accounting for 75% of the deaths, followed by toxic chemical pollution. And that is a look at today's health news. A little bit later, our pet vet on call.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eva Dudek from Parsons Pet Hospital. Coming up, we got an animal fun fact about pigeons.
But first, storms this morning, a break today, but more rain chances on the way. Forecast coming up. It is nice to see plenty of quiet skies, certainly after we had a loud night with the showers and thunderstorms that plowed on through much of the region. You can see how, despite some cloud cover out there, we're still looking dry for the time being from Indigo Sky just outside of Seneca, Missouri, and everybody had a chance to dry out after this amazing, messy line and complex of thunderstorms plowed on through this morning. Doug and I were keeping a close eye on these the other night because once they got going between Salina and Hayes, we had wind gusts trying to push up to 80 or 85 miles per hour. Fortunately, as they worked through our neck of the woods, we didn't have a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings with these, which is a darn good thing. But as the loop rewinds, and I can show you how the storms plowed on through, we had a good outflow. Winds coming out from the storms as they neared the Joplin area. In fact, we had a severe thunderstorm warning under the Joplin area last night just because of the outflow winds alone. The storms themselves weren't severe, but the winds were certainly pushing near 63 at Joplin Regional Airport as that gust pushed on through. As far as rain goes, just shy of an inch on the average just from last night's storms alone. In the short term, not seeing anything on the radar right now, but I want to keep an eye on our southern counties, especially US 60 along that corridor and south, because that's where I think we could see a few isolated storms pop up as we get deeper into the evening. But for temperatures, sadly the rain didn't scrub out the warmth. We dropped back into the 60s this morning, sure, but back into the mid and even a couple upper 80s this afternoon. But again, we're looking okay right now. 87 in Joplin with partly sunny skies up top. Feels like 93 though with that dew point. Sitting at a muggy 71 degrees. Everybody, though, is warm and kind of muggy with mid to upper 80s all across the board. But eventually, we're going to fall out of the 80s into the 70s by 10 o'clock and then to the mid 60s later on tonight. So, where's the next chance of rain coming from? It's already getting started out across southeast Colorado, western Kansas, and northeastern New Mexico. That complex of storms is going to ride along our front, which is parked right on top of the region. So this will certainly be a focal point for those storms to travel along and for a couple of storms around here to try and fire up. Plus, we've got a quick little upper level wave aiding in those developing storm chances. So let's see if we can time these out here. In the evening, again, along the south of US 60, that's where we'll watch for some isolated storms. They could be strong, not expecting them to be severe, but as we hit the overnight, we'll start on the dry side. Then we'll deal with this complex of storms after 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and they'll continue on through during the morning hours. I do not expect these to be strong, but can't rule out some wind and hail as these storms push on through. Then we're going to dry out and look good for tomorrow afternoon again. But like last night's storms, we're not going to scrub out the heat after this tomorrow morning's round of rain. 66 in the morning, 80 by noon. Highs back near 86, so another warm and muggy afternoon lined up. Friday, this time it starts dry, but with another cold front on the way in. We'll watch for widely scattered storms Friday evening, and then maybe some more widespread storms going into late Friday night and early Saturday. And that does have a chance to spawn some severe storms. It's relatively looking like a lower threat, but we'll keep an eye on the storms between 4 o'clock Friday afternoon and 1 o'clock Saturday morning, with, I'm just presuming, wind and hail being the biggest issues. Now to the 7-day forecast. 86 Thursday, 84 Friday. Still looking cooler by the weekend though, Dow. 72 Saturday and 66 on Sunday after we start in the mid-40s.
Yeah, chilly overnights ahead. Thanks. Coming up, side crash test for SUVs. First, though, we go way back to the Civil War era to honor a local veteran. His name is John Boston. He served in the U.S. Army in 1863 and 1864 as part of the Ohio Voluntary Infantry. Private John Boston, a four-state hero.
Nick Kelly.
Topping today's Consumer Watch, stocks fell sharply on Wall Street today as dismal results from Target renew fears that inflation is battering U.S. companies. We're going to have those closing stock market numbers in just a bit. The Federal Reserve plans to continue raising interest rates despite the recent volatility on Wall Street. Speaking at a Wall Street Journal event, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said short-term interest rates will continue to climb until there's evidence inflation is coming down in a clear and convincing way. SUVs are some of the most popular vehicles on the road, and new research looked at how certain models hold up in crash tests. Naomi Ruckham has the latest.
One by one, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety smashed into 18 different mid-size SUVs, looking to see how well they protect passengers in a side crash test. And this year's test was tougher. The IIHS introduced a larger barrier that travels faster to simulate the larger vehicles common on the road.
The growth of SUVs and pickup trucks in the United States has resulted in heavier vehicles being involved in these kinds of collisions.
IIHS President David Harkey says half the mid-size SUVs tested received a good rating. The rest came in at acceptable or marginal. The results are much better than recent testing on 20 different small SUVs. Only one received a good rating.
Do you feel confident that car makers can and will make changes based on these results?
We are confident in the auto industry and that they will respond to this new test. There's no doubt that they can do it. It's just a question of how long it takes them to employ some of the additional, perhaps structural measures, restraint measures that will protect the occupants.
The IIHS will soon perform side crash tests on other vehicles, including sedans, to see how they handle the impact. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
May be tough to smile when buying groceries these days, but MasterCard has a new payment system that could require it. The company's new biometric checkout program will allow consumers to pay for goods using the same facial recognition technology that unlocks smartphones. A pilot program launches this week in Brazil with the PayFace app. Our Pet Vet on Call is coming up, but first, today's closing stocks numbers.
Services provided by the
Up next on the CBS Evening News, an historic win for the U.S. women's soccer team off the field after reaching a landmark deal to finally be paid the same amount as the men's team. Then on KOAM News at 6, KOAM is partnering with Missouri TV stations that are part of the Gray Television Group for a series of polls on a variety of topics. We're going to have results on some questions about abortion and see how the answers break down by party and by gender. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. In their natural cliffside habitat, they're often called rock doves, but they've adapted to man-made structures like, say, skyscrapers. Some have been domesticated, some are feral, and in urban areas they typically go by a different name. Today, our Pet Vet on Call has some fun facts for us about pigeons.
Okay. To most, pigeons are an annoying pest, but they are really quite a fascinating animal. They are one of the very few species that co-parent their young. They take actually shifts sitting on the nests until the babies are born, and then they both go out and get food and feed the babies. Pigeons are also one of the few animals that mate for life. It's a lot more than a lot of us can say.
Hey, we invite questions from anyone. If you have one, you just send it to PetVet at KOAMTV.com. Dr. Eva Dudek from the Parsons Pet Hospital answers a different question or brings us a fun fact every Wednesday on KOAM News at 5. You can also find answers to previous questions on our website. All right, let's check out our picks of the litter for the week. Look at this. From the Joplin Humane Society, we've chosen this adult male beagle mix. His name is Clarence. Perfect name for that guy. And from the Southeast Kansas Humane Society, this less than 1 year old domestic short hair cat, a wide-eyed female named Alice. If you're looking for a pet, why not check out your local Humane Society? How can you say no to Clarence or Alice?
You can't.
Great faces. Storm chances again.
Yeah, maybe a few isolated storms in our southern counties this evening, but another better shot late tonight by the morning drive tomorrow. Then the rest of Thursday is looking dry, but it's going to stay warm and muggy with highs near 86. We get a fresh look at all these rain chances lined up over the next several days with a fresh look at things at 6 now.
Thanks for joining us. The CBS Evening News is next, and of course, we're going to be right back here for KOIM News at 6. See you then. Let's make it a great evening.